everyone, and welcome to the second module of this MOOC. In the previous module, you have explored the main global trends that affect contemporary ways of working and workspaces, including the evolution of organizational structures. So this module introduces organizational culture and values. In this mini lecture, we will see a general definition of culture, values, and practices, how culture is described in particular in the organizational context, and what different layers of organizational culture can be recognized. As you may know, organizations often decide to change their workplaces because they aim at inducing a cultural switch in their employees. However, what we know about the interplay between company culture and physical work environment is still pretty limited. But let's see first what we mean by culture and values. Culture can decline at different levels. As the picture shows, there is a supranational, national, professional, organizational, group, and even an individual level of culture. The different levels are determined, or we can say they manifest themselves through values and practices. For instance, organizational culture is mainly based on practices, whereas national culture expresses mainly through values. By practices, we mean all the rituals, symbols, and the visible displays of beliefs. Values, instead, are the invisible affairs and mental processes that lead to certain choices or behaviors, such as rational and irrational feelings. In particular, corporate values are part of what is the so-called non-visual symbolic corporate identity. Corporate values are defined as the operating philosophies or principles that guide an organization's internal conduct, as well as its relationship with the customers, partners, and shareholders. Usually we can find these values in a company's mission and vision statement, or even in dedicated statements of corporate values. Besides corporate values, visual symbolic corporate identity corresponds to all the tangible company practices, among which we can list, for instance, a company name, logo, colors, signs and billboards, vehicles, but also the environment, architecture, and facilities. Then, corporate culture is a complex, overarching system that includes beliefs, assumptions, values, norms, artifacts, symbols, actions, and language patterns even, that are shared by all members of an organization. Basically, we can say that culture corresponds to a body of knowledge that guides members' behaviors and, of course, by doing so, reflects the identity of an organization. Schein proposes an interesting model of organizational culture that is made of superimposed layers from invisible to visible. As the picture shows, the deepest level consists of implicit assumptions about general principles, such as human nature, relations, power, and so on. This is usually taken for granted and remains totally hidden. The second layer consists of the exposed explicit values of a company. These correspond to norms, mission and vision statements, behavioral rules, and so on, as we just said before. And finally, the third level expresses visible and tangible measures or actions, artifacts that an organization takes openly, including language, dress code, and also workspace setting and building location. What's interesting is that in a company there can be more than one culture. Sometimes different departments or groups might develop their own autonomous identity. Of course, this results into multiple subcultures in the same organization. So in this mini lecture, we saw that culture includes values and practices, that corporate culture reflects the identity of an organization as it is shared by its members, and that organizational culture includes assumptions, values, and artifacts. In the next mini lecture, we will explore culture models and assessment methods.